Good day to you. It's the 31st of July 2025. There's been some showers, but very good weather. I've made a video this morning on this electricity and gas and energy crisis that confronts us, and I got great responses. And this video is about something that Barry Cowan, MEP, has to say about the deal and all of this. But I want to get to a very important part of it. Now, I want to read a few of the comments. Now, one of the ones is Jerry Cahill 2447 says, "Don't worry too much, Val." Well, I'm not really worrying about any of this. I'll get by. I be wee farm tucked up a big lane. Hard to get at me, and I have two generators, and we'll get by. But he says, "Don't worry too much." But I am concerned, and my job is not to worry, it's to alert the public. Many people might worry about something like no electricity. I don't, but I feel it my duty to alert the public, and I get a certain amount of satisfaction from abusing the people that are doing this to our country. It's a sort of a nastiness that's in me, and I'm very, very proud of it. Very proud of it. Anyway, I understand that the money earmarked for the network cannot be spent due to lack of capacity in the industry. This is a common problem all over. They can't build houses. Nope, they can't get anybody to work. They can't train people. When I was a young lad, I went to Carrickmacross Vocational School, and they were teaching us metalwork, woodwork, building construction, carpentry. That seems to be gone. Nobody seems to have any skill. And this is a huge, huge problem. But there's also the fact that they couldn't roll it out. There's nobody to get the work done. If they were going to build some kind of a tunnel in Dublin, where would you get a team to do it? I'm very much in touch with a few big builders, and it's hard to get people, and it's hard to hold them. So it's very difficult, because they've tried to destroy the practical subjects in favour of our baloney. So our woke stuff, right? And so he says, "Don't worry, I understand that the money earmarked for them there cannot be spent due to lack of capacity in the industry. The guys who have the job of building out the network are treating this extra money as a joke, and it is only optics. Make what you like of that. I make no further comment." Now, Big Bass Bomb makes the point that according to the Simon community, there's 290,000 what he calls sofa surfers. I don't know what he means there, but anyway, people who never get their home. That's basically it. Best thing you can do, folks, if when you can't get a home and you have to live in your parents' basement, vote Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Don't ever forget that. And if you can't vote for them, vote for Sinn Féin. They'll soon give you a house. Who's going to build them? Who has the skill to square out a building or put in a foundation? And what the build, it'll be scrap, and the toilet pipes going out and the foul sewer won't have the right levels. They'll have it going up the hill. You'll be digging the sewage out of it for the rest of your life. Now, P. Frau Universal 1890, he says you should all be taxed to the B. You know that rude word, B-O, you know that. You should all be taxed to the balls. Call it a whinge tax. That's the right thing. What I would suggest the government to do is double the taxes. You know, in that cartoon, great cartoon for Philip, for kids, for youngsters, is you know that one about King John and Robin Hood and all that. You know that, and the king, the stayer, he's an imposter, and your man comes back from the Crusades and put him out. You know that one. It's not Jungle Book. It's a bit like that anyway. But anyway, keep this fella keeps double the taxes, triple the taxes, tax them more. The government will not get the support of the Irish people unless they tax them till they're eating the second bits of burgers outside McDonald's. Till the queue outside McDonald's will not be for the burgers that they can't afford, but for the bits they're throwing in the bin. That's what I have always said. We can't apply logic to this situation. Now, a very unfortunate comment is Bravo Johnny. "It was rigged, you fool." Who is that meant to be against? Who is the fool? It was rigged, you fool. Now, I'm going to start deleting nonsensical comments. I'd much rather get a comment from the lefties here and Coughlin's Tom. At least you can it makes some sense. But this thing of answering, who is that fella talking about? You must say to whom you're addressing the thing. Is it me that he's calling a fool, or is it somebody else? We don't know. I suspect that fella, Bravo Johnny, is on the cocaine. There's a lot of drugs around. A lot of drugs, and it's bound to creep into my site. Now, so that's it. And then most of them then are very complimentary to me. Now, what I want to deal with here, folks, is Barry Cowan. So Barry Cowan is guaranteed to be an MEP for the rest of his life. They'll vote for him in Laois, Offaly and down in the Midlands, no matter what he does. No matter what he does. No matter what he does. And the dying words of the people who vote for Barry Cowan when they're finished, and we all have to meet our doom and our death eventually, is could we not have some way to extend our voting? Should voters not be able to vote after they're dead? I mean, if you get a Fianna Fáil supporter or a Fine Gael supporter and they die and they can't vote, I think that you could see that remedy, that they'll have a vote at least in the next election. So before they die, they have a postal vote. That's what is needed. It's terrible that a person dies and can't vote. For Barry Cowan, he was a brother of Biffo, you know, that other Taoiseach, Brian Cowan. So we'll read what he has to say. It's about the deal, but I'm coming to something very important. The deal announced in Scotland, he makes the point that it's better than nothing. We were facing 30% tariffs imposed, and now we have a 15%. Nobody can explain to me, why did Britain get a 10% and the rest of the EU get 15%? What's the story with the North? Does anyone know that? Can anyone post underneath? I understand the North comes under the South. That's what I understand. That represents a significant cost, but it's far better than the considerable worst cliff edge scenario that Irish businesses were otherwise facing. In other words, what you do is you have to sell your product into America, and when it goes in there, a 15% tax is lifted on it. And if the US won't buy it, you have to pay that yourself to make your product competitive. So it makes it harder for businesses to make a profit. On the other hand, it could affect inflation in America. This is a very important point to make. But one of the things that the EU did, they left any other economic bloc in a quandary, because when the EU caved in, that means that other countries are under pressure to cave in as well. But then I'm a supporter of Trump, and it's nice to see him winning. And the other thing is, I mean, Ursula von der Leyen praised Trump and said he was a great man, and I'm the only one in Ireland, and about 25 and myself, that said he's a great man, and I still say it. So you can't say, Val Martin, you're an old Trump supporter. Ursula von der Leyen, the chairperson of the EU Commission, has said the same. So I owed an apology. Nobody is claiming the news emerging from Turnberry is a cause for celebration, especially not for Irish exporters who face these 15% tariffs, eroding margins, and that's what they will do. They will erode the profit margin, all right. Raise consumer costs and hurt competitiveness. But let's be clear, this escalation was not initiated by the EU. Faced with the US administration determined to impose punitive tariffs on Europe, Europe had no effect but to play. Yeah, well, I'm not making any deal of that. We'll talk about that elsewhere. The European Commission was cornered. Now, here's the question. How did the European Commission become cornered? Surely that's a failure. If a commission or an entity allows itself to be cornered, isn't that a failure? Doesn't that show they're a crowd of dopes? And what I've been saying about them was right. If I was running the EU, there's no way we'd be cornered. We'd have our own industry. We'd be independent. But they have nothing. If the Americans don't give it to them, they have nothing. And they're shouting about net zero, and then Trump is saying, no, we're not having it. So what they're going to do is move everything offshore. So according to Starmer and the EU, if you make the steel abroad, once it's not in our beautiful garden, once the emissions don't go up over England or Germany or Ireland, oh, that's all right. Put them up over Japan or China or America. That's the cheat that's going on. And that's the cheat that the local voters for Barry Cowan, they demand that they'll not vote for him unless he cheats. Right. The European Commission was cornered, and those now condemning the outcome will probably have condemned an alternative. Yeah, that's probably right. Well, I didn't condemn anything really yet. So, well, I did say they capitulated. They wouldn't know how to negotiate. I don't think you might be talking about 12.5% down to 10.5%. Would they know that 0.5% is 0.5? I'd say Ursula von der Leyen wouldn't have a clue. I don't think she could transmit a fraction into a decimal. I don't think she could. Or into a percentage. Percentage, you multiply it by 100, and you they don't know. See, I was at school till I was 12. No, don't forget that. Had the EU walked away and triggered its own 100 billion retaliation list, we would now be locked in a fully fledged trade war and yet have averted the worst case scenario with the calculated compromise. It is still being criticised. He's whinging about it being criticised. He'll not enter into any meaningful discussion on it anyway. You cannot credibly oppose both confrontation and compromise. Well, you can't do the two together. That's true. It appears to me that though many commentators in reaching the agreement have already disregarded what we know to be number one rule of EU politics on the global stage, the need for unity among member states. Well, I disagree. What has unity brought us? The edge of destruction. And do you know, it's possible there's going to be a war in Ukraine very soon. Why do we want to be part of it? We could have negotiated as Ireland separately. But I voted for the EU years ago. I didn't expect they'd come along with the woke, with the LGBTQ, with the net zero, a ruling by the United Nations indirectly to the EU that people have a right to it, the climate. So we can be fined for not doing climate stuff. They'll not find Trump, I'll tell you. They'll not find Trump. These are weaklings, Ursula von der Leyen, weaklings, and Barry Cowan's no better. So this thing that we should all be unity. Why don't we kick the traces? You don't have to break away from the EU to give out to them and shout about them. Isn't that what Orban is doing? He's a no lick. Some are asking us to oppose the entire deal because another member state like Germany managed to secure exemptions for its car sector, ignoring the fact that Ireland also has key carve-outs, including aviation, certain agricultural products and potentially spirits. So he mentions spirits. Like you see, some idiot there said, "Oh, you keep away from the bottle." I mean, and then to say you must be supporting whiskey companies. I ate cornflakes yesterday morning. I don't know anything about Kellogg's. There were Kellogg's, I don't know. I drink Lions' tea, I don't hold shares. The ludicrousy of the left. To think if you buy a bottle of My Waddy Orange, you're supporting the company that makes it. Huh? Pitting country against country is short-sighted and will only undermine Europe's position in the real negotiations that are yet to come. Well, can Europe negotiate? Why is critical pointing out to Europe? Why does everything have to be Ursula von der Leyen? Has there been any? I know that member states were consulted. As a member of the European Parliament International Trade Committee, that's what he is, International Trade Committee, I have been directly consulted throughout this process, including through briefings and regular contact with European Trade Commission, Marko Slavic and his team. So fair enough, he has been consulted. And he'd be in touch with his colleagues in government and the Fianna Fáil. So, right, we accept that. There was a certain amount of consultation there. I believe him on that. The eventual outcome seen in recent days broadly reflects what had been forecast in these meetings. A deal that Trump can present as a win, but which in practice is a structured framework with key details yet to be finalised. There'll be a lot of finalising on that. And that's why I'm not giving you strict answers in the weeks and months to come, for which the EU will no doubt be ready. There's no denying the scale of the threat we faced before the agreement. The Trump administration was absolutely willing to impose tariffs of 200%. Wasn't that the stuff for them? That shocked them. Where's your old global warming now? On pharmaceutical products, despite some now claiming otherwise, that threat was real, not rhetoric. It was real, he would do it. How far would it get him is another day's work. For now, the agreed 15% tariff ceiling, despite the ongoing 232 investigations, I need that explained to me with some of my contributors. We'll investigate that. I don't know what Section 232 is. Provides breathing room for that sector. Overall, it must be something to do with the pharmaceuticals. I don't know. Overall, thanks to intense stage diplomacy, including direct engagement between the Taoiseach and the Commission, we have the general tariff ceiling from 30%. Fair enough. He presents this energy thing. Appreciate that 750 billion, that's 653 billion euros, committed to buy US energy. I don't know about that. At 3.25 times the price, I don't think there's anything to go about that. And I fail to see why the EU should have agreed to that. I don't know. I think that the ordinary markets should be let run. And of course, they cut off Russia. And we don't know how that will go, because I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to have a world war quite soon, but we'll just leave that for the moment. So anyway, how are they going to get all this gas in? Oh, it'll break Europe. Trebling the price of energy will break Europe. Talk about people not able to pay arrears of electricity. Now, I'll cut to the chase on 16 minutes. Now, this is what I want to get at. On the contrary, I argued for months in Brussels for such a move. This is them to buy the American energy, right? He says buy American energy. Okay, leave that. A way to give Trump, the most transactional of politicians, a win that also serves Europe's goals of reducing dependence on Russian gas. You have to take it 3,000 miles across the sea. So he's all in favour of this. He's obviously hates Russia anyway. But this must be short-term lever, not a long-term crutch. It reinforces the urgent need for investment, certainty, in renewables. Here we are. They have to pay $250 billion a year for energy from America. And he says, let's build renewables. As if renewables were the same as the energy. Sure, if renewables works, we already have 4,000 megawatts. Why are we bothered with energy? Why don't we tell Trump we don't need it at all? And you know the answer by now. Renewables are net consumers of coal, oil and gas when measured over a year. And this idiot is trying to put forward this. Especially offshore wind along Ireland's west coast. And no compliance with EU law or no assessment. So we already have 16% of the people unable to pay their electricity bill. And he wants a huge offshore wind and solar apparently as well, but offshore wind business. Maybe 2,000 megawatts. Which has to be paid entirely from the electricity bill. Which results in no turning off of fossil fuel. It'll take 2 full gas power stations to keep these wind farms running offshore. Isn't that some idiot? Isn't he just some idiot? And Trump has made it clear, and he didn't address it here, that they're a scam. He said they were a scam in Scotland, the wind turbines. The broader perspective is where the real opportunity and the potential for actual failure lies. The worst outcome now would be to treat this deal as an endpoint rather than a trigger for renewed focus on European competitiveness and getting their own house in order. So his idea of returning European competitiveness, of restoring the German car manufacturing, the German machine tool manufacturing, is to build more offshore windmills. What kind of an idiot is he? Barry Cowan. Barrycowen. We must act decisively on the agenda laid out in the Draghi report, completing the single market in energy. More pylons. Build a whole heap of wires from England to Ireland, a whole heap of wires from France to Wexford. Thousands of tons of copper. Digital services and capital markets, that's all hogwash. What can it be a capital market if you're not making anything? Reducing the regulatory burden on SMEs. So isn't it the EU that has all these regulatory burdens on small to medium-sized enterprise, and the EU that forces the small to medium-sized enterprises, particularly manufacturing, to pay carbon credits to somebody who sits up on his holidays in Barbados because he shut down his factory and he can collect these carbon credits? Where is he coming from? And reforming state aid rules, especially in areas like housing. Isn't his government in power forever? Since, how come he's going to do it now? Trump did more in one evening in Scotland than he would do in a lifetime, where outdated constraints are choking delivery and driving up costs. No, Barry, it's just stupid renewable energy nonsense and your woke climate change codology. Your bluff has been called. Infrastructure investment must be ramped up. More windmills and solar from China, particularly in areas relating to energy competitiveness. So how is there going to be energy competitiveness? We must have about 10 companies distributing electricity. Where is the competitiveness? They're all putting up their prices by up to 20% now, and that more of it to come. What? Did this fella get an education? Was there not Christian Brothers or some kind of a school? Did he ever work out a percentage? Did he ever use log tables? Huh? Like the development of renewables and grid connectivity. More of the same. Ireland has immense untapped potential for offshore wind. Will you come along and assess it under the SEA directive, and we'll soon see. If the onshore wind has given us the second highest electricity prices in the world, why do you think offshore wind is going to remedy that? Why do you think that? If the drug addict goes into the doctor at 52, he's a heroin, cocaine and crackhead and all the rest, what will the doctor tell him? You can do all these things, you can do a bit of walking every day, you can take a blood pressure tablet, but you need to stop the dope. An alcoholic the same. What's this fella talking about doing? We know where it led us, and he wants more. As Colin McCarthy, the economist, said, when you're in a hole, you stop digging. And these crowd are digging more. And I'll read what he said again. Infrastructure investment must be ramped up, particularly in areas relating to energy competitiveness. Aren't they after giving Airgrid billions? Like the development of renewables and grid connectivity. Is he on a promise for somebody? Grid connectivity. More windmills, more solar farms, and good land destroyed. Cattle prices are so dear. They're London, very, very expensive, and we should be producing more calves. What is he talking about? We'll build windmills and pylons. Nothing about helping farmers, maybe with farm relief or something, so you can have more cows calving or whatever. Nothing at all. More windmills. Ireland has immense untapped energy from offshore wind, and it's on its western seaboard, unlocking that potential and linking it into European supergrid. Oh, super. Make Ireland a hub. Eddie O'Connor was at that 30 years ago. Supergrid could only help reduce costs for Irish businesses. Isn't that some lie? Unlocking the potential and linking it into a European supergrid could only help reduce costs for Irish businesses. Try telling that to the people in Wellman's International. Huh? Look at every collapse of businesses, energy, electricity. And what's his reply? We want more of the same. It could only help reduce costs to Irish businesses and consumers by up to 39%. He plucked that. That's a lie. He plucked that out of his butt. I'm telling you, Barry Cowan, you are a liar. A liar. Sue me if you want. The bloody cheek of you. With 16% of the people can't pay their electricity bill. And your answer is more of it. Add more to it. And then you have the cheek and the lion cheek to say you have to reduce the prices by 39% for businesses. What a dirty rotten. What is wrong with him? As UCD supernode analysis is showing. Who's UCD supernode analysis? Was it done under Article 3.2 of the SCA directive? No. Is he a woke professor somewhere, hoping to get promoted to the top man? Who is UCD supernode analysis shown? It couldn't show it. If it did, it's fake. But would position Ireland as a net exporter of clean, secure energy to Europe. Oh my God almighty. The idiot doesn't realise that they have to have 36% of the grid fossil fuel. If you're going to make more electricity and get rid of it, you have to produce more coal, oil and gas. You have to pay these crowds for turning off their windmills. What a deluded idiot. I want to meet you. Now, I'd be busy. I used to confront these. I confronted that cabbage head Eamon Ryan in the Chester Beatty Library. And when I was roaring at him like I'm roaring at you now, he ran out the other door and I ran back and I met him in that door. He couldn't get out. And the people who were with him agreed I was right. My engagements with the business community. Well, what kind of business community are? Is there any businesses out there that did engage with this idiot? Huh? What about Wellmont? My engagement with the business community across the Midlands, Northwest, and the rest of Ireland since the deal suggests the 15% tariff is unlikely to trigger a sudden short-term relocation of firms. Yeah, they'll be able to handle it. And the other thing you're going to see, we're going to have, I hope, we may see American cars moving in here. As the quality of European cars goes to dirt, till they're only trash, the American cars might come in. That'd be a nice thing to see. Anyway, particularly in the pharma sector. To the US, such moves are costly. Yeah, you know, he's saying that the pharmaceuticals may be able to stay here. That's all right. That's good enough. See, some of it, somebody's telling them some facts and somebody's telling them lies. And he's not analysing anything because he's too thick. The greater danger is that we fall behind on fundamentals, that Irish small and medium-sized enterprises, especially exporters, lose out, not because tariffs, but because of failure to keep pace with the global economy. The cheek of you. The cheek of you. Britain was closing down Scunthorpe and Port Talbot, and that idiot Starmer had to move in and bail them out. The Chinese couldn't make money with their green crap. So while this deal has helped avoid disaster, it cannot be the end of the story. Well, the quicker we get rid of him and get him out, the better. The real test is using this reprieve wisely to reinforce our economic model and ensure Ireland remains indispensable in the new global trade landscape, which all amounts to more windmills, more solar farms, more copper, aluminium and steel ploughed into the ground, and not as much as a wire nail made. Not as much as a wire nail. There's no, the basic stuff for lathes and milling machines has now been, as far as I can see, totally driven out of Europe. Even Kebelco, that crowd in Germany that makes them, buys the basic steel products and the cast iron from China and Taiwan. And they've driven that out with the attack on industry. I call Barry Cowan a dirty liar, and I demand he meet me. We were Fianna Fáil people long ago. This is lies. Get your barristers on it and we'll see you in court. What a dirty thing to do. And mothers can't cook their children's food. What a dirty statement to publish. And what are we going to do about these politicians? Now, folks, he gets a huge vote from the farming community. People who milk and provide grain and dry potatoes and all that. Huge energy users. I'm only a modest energy user of electricity. And they're voting for him. And this is what he's going to do. I have predicted that if he gets his way, if you apply the Air Grid's adequacy report of 2010, the price of a unit of electricity will be $2.49. That's when you get your total bill in the door with everything on it. It'll be $2.49. In other words, if you have 100 units, it'll be $249 for 100 units, and the average price amount of units on a domestic house is 5,000. So I've worked it out there. 5,000 for now. That'd be a family home. You know, that's about it. Units will be 12,450 with Mr. Cowan when he gets done. 12,000. Now, if we take a small industry with double that, with 10,000, then that's 24,400, 800, 24,900, 24,000. So let's say a small little food place doing food. They'd be double a domestic house, I presume. 24,000. And an engineering company that might have 20,000 will be 4 times that. So it's multiplied by 4. We'll just multiply that by. We'll multiply it by 5. We'll say that a house. So for that basic industry or even a restaurant or whatever, the electricity bill is 49,800 when he gets doing his thing. Folks, I rest my case. Comment underneath. Isn't it sad that this level of ignorance and the amount that was spent on education? And I went through university late in life, and there's people there can count better than me. And this is the lad that represents us in Europe. This is him. And this is what he suggests. It surely is unbelievable, breathtaking stuff. It's a scandal that nobody with money will challenge the government on this green junk and challenge it under the SCA and bring it to the European Court of Justice. It's a terror that we never got a chance to do that. Anyway, folks, comment underneath. Isn't it just, it's shocking. It's not that I worry about it, that a whole society can be fooled to this degree. To this degree. Good luck. Just got a call there. A housing estate proposed for Ballygymsduff has been knocked because there's no water. In Kingscourt, a housing estate has been knocked because the sewage can't cope. In Dublin, several places have been told there won't be electricity. And what's Barry Cowan's solution? Is it to get and fix this infrastructure? No. It's thousands and millions of tons of copper, aluminium and steel and concrete ploughed into the ground, placed under the sea over to France. What's France got to do with him? Over the sea to Britain. More and more big companies putting in North Sea wind farms, solar farms, taking away the good land at a time when cattle and beef can't be got. It's not to promote the cattle or beef. It's not to get the sewage services up and running. It's not to get proper electricity and cut out this nonsense and go back to a proper grid. No, it's spend more on the very junk that causes the problem. It is clearly unbelievable. Good luck, folks. Thank you.